to Seafood 101. Hi, I'm Ken Saunderson with the Seattle Propeller Club, and today we're joined by Dr. Craig Morris, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Genuine Alaska Pollock Producers. Thanks for joining us today, Craig.
Great to be here, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Hey, why don't we start off with having you share a little bit about the association, what you guys do, and a little bit about your members.
You bet. The Association of Genuine Alaska Pollock Producers has a really singular focus. It's to build demand and awareness for what we believe is the perfect protein, Wild Alaska Pollock. Our membership comprises the entire Wild Alaska Pollock fleet. All of those that have an ownership of our total allowable catch are members of GAPP. And we also have an associate membership program that includes both the supplier industry as well as our downstream partners that bring to market the brands that most consumers are familiar with when they think of Wild Alaska Pollock.
Yeah, the cool thing is that by joining together, you've really had a powerful message that's been delivered to the public. You've had great success in telling that story. Talk a little bit more about the kind of the marketing that you've done through GAPP.
I've been really lucky to have a board that's comprised of the CEOs of the industry leaders, leading companies. When I came on board, had a clear vision of what they wanted and what they believed success looked like. They wanted GAPP to focus on conducting research, both fundamental scientific research, like the recently completed Lifecycle Assessment that we did, documenting the very low carbon footprint of wild-caught seafood and wild-caught Wild Alaska Pollock in particular, but also consumer research. That we knew going in that Alaska Pollock was a protein that was sort of hidden in plain sight. Millions of consumers enjoyed it, but they really didn't know what the fish or the story behind the fish was and the products that they enjoyed. So we did a lot of consumer research and continue to do a lot of consumer research to better understand, out of all the factual attributes of our fish, what are the ones that resonate best with consumers? And then we action that research just so it doesn't sit on the shelf through what we call our partnership program. And by far and away, that's our largest budget line item, where we reach out to brands and ask them if they're interested in bringing Wild Alaska Pollock to market in new forms, and place it in new channels, or associate it with influencers. And we've been really successful in bringing to market new products that basically elevate the fish, place it into new channels, and really mitigate risk or manage risk for our industry so that we're in as many different food channels as possible.
You know, and I think one of the cool things is you'll be able to measure success, and that showing how Wild Alaska Pollock has grown in the marketplace as a preferred fish now. Talk a little bit about that now.
You bet. One of the things that we didn't have as an industry is a really firm handle on what the consumer familiarity and awareness was of Alaska Pollock, not only in the United States, but in foreign markets. And we chose to look at the United States first. And so actually right now we have deployed across the United States the third consecutive year-over-year attitude and awareness study. Last year, for example, we found that fully 10 million more consumers were familiar with Alaska Pollock than the year before. We believe that is proven to be true by watching Alaska Pollock move up in the top 10 seafood ranking. We're right now the #3 consumed fish in the United States. We're really proud of that. We're the #1 consumed wild-caught fish in the United States. And when we sit down in that same survey and ask consumers about their perception of Wild Alaska Pollock, for fully 81% of US consumers have a positive association with the fish. And that's a higher number than any competing whitefish in the marketplace today. And that's something I think we should be really proud of, that as we've worked to introduce Wild Alaska Pollock to the American consumer and consumers around the world, we've done it very effectively in a very positive manner, where consumers understand the attributes of the fish that matter most to them. Namely the fact that it's wild caught, it's from Alaska, it has an unmatched nutrition story, it's mild tasting, and finally, its sustainability story is frankly unmatched in any protein.
Let's talk a little bit about all of that. Talk a little bit about the health and nutrition value and of importance of the Wild Alaska Pollock.
Yeah, we know we have a superfood in Wild Alaska Pollock, and we're leaning in on it really heavily. We're working with a contractor now called Eat Well Global to better understand how we can really get that nutrition story to resonate with consumers. We know consumers, we know Americans, and people around the world need to eat more seafood than they currently do. And we want to make sure that we get people excited about eating a protein that not only tastes good, but is good for them. So we right now have deployed across the nation, I think it's 14,000 registered dietitians, asking them about Alaska Pollock and the product forms that you find in the marketplace, even the battered and breaded fish sticks and the serene seafood in the seafood case, asking them what segments of the population would you recommend eat more of that, and why? For kids, for example, we understand that a fish stick isn't necessarily like a broiled fish fillet, but that fish stick is something that's very approachable. It's very convenient, and it gets somebody eating seafood early in life so that hopefully they get the health benefits of eating seafood throughout their entire life. And that's one of the things that I think Alaska Pollock really has, is that approachability, that mild taste, and it has frankly a great price point that consumers are always looking for.
You also mentioned sustainability. The pollock fleet is the world's largest certified sustainable fishery. Why is the commitment to sustainability so important to you and your members?
I came to the seafood industry from another protein, and I've learned a lot. That one of the things that we've had to do as an industry, and the Alaska pollock industry is a relatively young one. If you look at the seafood communities around the world, my family came from outside of New Bedford, Massachusetts, for example, which has a very long and rich seafood tradition. I think Alaska learned from a lot of the struggles that other seafood communities have had. And when we were first harvesting our resource, one of the things that we had to do, because Alaska pollock is a resource that's so far away from the population centers, we had to focus on efficiency. And I think that's one of the things you'll hear time and time again. What we ship out of Alaska is basically all in edible form. It's boneless fillets. It's those boneless blocks of surimi seafood. We convert that which is not going to be eaten by people into our meals and our oils that can go into such things as supplements or other things. So it's an amazingly efficient industry that has worked hard on those efficiencies, and it has frankly an unmatched commitment to sustainability in the preservation of the biomass perspective. We don't want to see this resource go away. We want it to exist in perpetuity for generations to come. And I think that's one of the things that we should be really proud of, is the commitment to not only sustainability in terms of food waste, not only sustainability in terms of carbon footprint, but sustainability in terms of preservation of the biomass, because people want to know that we're doing right by the oceans. And I don't think you're going to find another industry that is more, frankly, in line with what the oceans need than Alaska pollock.
It's a great story, that's for sure. Hey, tell me, you finding more and more pollock, wild Alaska pollock, in stores and restaurants and big box retailers. It's available now everywhere, whereas 5, 10 years ago, it was really hard to find.
Yeah, we like to say it was hidden in plain sight. We always over-indexed in the quick service restaurants. We're a core menu item at the nation's largest fast food chain. We always have over-indexed in the frozen department of the grocery store. And obviously during COVID, those are two channels that did really, really well. As you couldn't go into a restaurant to eat, you could drive through. And as you were stocking up, because you weren't going to the grocery store as many times as you were pre-COVID, the frozen food aisle was a very attractive place. And Alaska pollock has always been there. What we have work to do, though, is to move our name to front of pack. So when you're enjoying that, let's say Gordon's fish stick, it's not just a fish stick. It says prominently on the package, it's the sustainable fish called Wild Alaska Pollock. And when we've asked our consumers in the nationwide surveys, where did you hear about Alaska Pollock? They're time and time again saying that frozen food aisle. So the partners that we have in that channel are great partners. And if you look at that box, that fillet of fish, it says right on it that the Bering Sea sends its regards, Wild Alaskan Pollock. And we're really proud of that too. But what we're doing in GAPP is recognizing that, as they say in the stock market, past performance doesn't predict future results. Just because we were in the right place during COVID in the frozen food aisle of the grocery store and in the drive-through lane of the quick service restaurant, that doesn't mean that those are going to be the best channels in the future. So if you look at our partnership program, we're working to elevate the fish into higher end restaurants. We're working to place the fish into the chilled seafood case at the grocery store. We're working to talk about the versatility that surimi seafood provides. Give people not only the accurate information that imitation crab is anything but imitation, it's real seafood, but also give them recipe ideas and what to do with it. So we're really working hard to try to action consumers to look at Alaska pollock in different ways and not just a fish stick or a fish fillet sandwich.
Craig, I love your passion for wild Alaska pollock, and I love your passion for the industry. Why are you so optimistic about the future of the seafood industry and wild Alaska pollock?
It comes down to my board. I tell you, the leaders of this industry are the most optimistic and passionate people I've ever met. It's why I came to work at GAPP. their passion, their optimism is infectious. And I think they wanted somebody working for them in GAPP that shared that optimism, that shared that long-term view, and shared that exuberance. And I love to bring that exuberance to bear, because I think we've got a great product. I think we have a product that the more consumers learn about it, the more excited they get about it. When we've sat down with focus groups, we actually walk out of those focus groups with evangelists. And there's not many foods that can say that you can actually talk to people that don't know anything about your product. And when you're done with them, they go out and not only want to buy it themselves, but want to tell their friends to buy it too. That's a great product, and it's easy to be excited about it.
It's a great story. Thanks for joining us today, Craig.
Ken, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to be with you.